Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks for the opportunity. We are from Group 3 and we will presenting study case on auditing. For the first, I will explain the company profile and case timeline Wirecard AG to Vantage Personal. Who is Wirecard? A German vintage company that handle online payment and digital financial service. It was even part of Germany's top 30 biggest companies. And how big were they? They operate worldwide, including South Asia, and were seen as the future of digital banking. And the big problem is there was 1.9 billion cash held in their financial statement. The cash claimed to have in bank in the Philippines did not actually exist. Next, the disappearing cash scandal. Fake revenue. Wirecard used a three-party acquirees in regions where they did not have license. They then fake transaction number to make profit look bigger, and then fake documents. The confines the auditor management create the bank documents and fake confirmation letter. And what happened next? Their stock price dropped by 99%. The company went bankrupt in June 2020 and the CEO was arrested. Why did the auditor file? The auditor trusts Wirecard too much and become blind to red flag. They lacked professional skeptics and erroneous warning from the Financial Times, which had questioned Wirecard since 2019. And this failure affects: one is a risk assessment of internal control, and two, audit strategy planning.
Next is case analysis based on Chapter 12, is with assessing control risk. According to Chapter 12, Wirecard's problems stem from the auditor's failure to understand and evaluate the company's internal control. First is control environment. Wirecard did not have a functioning audit committee until 2019. The company culture was very close and dominated by the CEO, John Mercer and Marcus Brown. Second is management of threat of control. In Chapter 12, this is the higher risk. Management had access to manipulate journal entry and IT system data without oversight. And third is documentation. The auditor failed to document a proper flowchart and narrative of how third-party transactions or TPA were processed. Next is assessing control risk and deficiencies. Due to this inadequate understanding of internal control, the auditor then made an inappropriate control risk assessment. The first is material weakness. Connect to the material, where CAS has a material weakness in its control of their cash balance and third-party transaction. Two, identification of deficiencies. The auditors should have flagged the lack of segregation of duty between operation and financial reporting. And three is control risk assessment. The auditor incorrectly assessed control risk as low due to this fascination with broadcast IT technology, but it should have been maximum due to questionable management in the group. Next is impact of risk assessment on integrated audit. This error is assessing control risk had serious implications for broadcast integrated audit and internal control reporting. There's from IT control and reporting on internal control. IT control, Wirecard use complex IT system. The auditor should have conduct a test data approach or parallel simulation to verify whether their automated system were actually recording real transactions or just made up numbers. And for the reporting on internal control, if the auditor had properly executed Chapter 12, they should have issued an adverse opinion on were cuts internal control long before the scandal erupted.
Okay, hello everyone, my name is Zainadar Mazai. My student number is ended with 052. In here I want to continue the presentation of my group. So I'll be discussing about the audit strategy inside of this case. In this slide, we can see that why Car's auditors were trapped in a strategy that it was efficient but it's very ineffective. So also, the auditors primarily compare the revenue trends and profit margin from year to year using analytical procedures. Also, for the additional content, the problem is that analytical procedures are only reliable if and only if the data is honest. Because the wildcards management is consistently fabricated this number every year, the trends appear stable and perfectly normal. Also, according to Chapter 13, when we face a high risk of management override, we cannot rely on cheap or high level comparison alone. Also, the audit program must shift away from a simple analytical from simple analytic towards more rigorous substantive testing. Also, for the next slide is actually this is one of the most fatal errors, that the failure and test of details of balance, or TDB chapter 30 teaches us that TDB is the most powerful types of tests because we seek evidence directly from the independent outside parties. However, in this case, the auditors failed to obtain the direct bank confirmations from the bank in the Philippines. Also, for additional, instead they making an immature mistake by accepting documents from third-party trustee rather than the bank itself. Okay, that's kind of fun actually. Since the 1.9 billion euros or dollars, I forgot about the currency, I'm sorry, was a highly material amount. The auditors should have the auditors should have followed standard TDB procedures, sending an independent confirmation letters. If they had this multi-billion dollar fraud, would they have been uncovered years ago? And the next one, also the last one, is to conclude, I will connect this into the audit risk model. Since we know from the chapter 12 that why card management integrity was compromised, their inherent risk and their control risk were at the maximum levels. Automatically, according to the chapter 30 formula, our plan detection risk must be pushed to a very low level. Also, for additional context, this means that the auditors have zero margins for error to achieve such a low detection risk. The auditor is required to significantly expand the sample size for the transaction testing and TDB. The big lesson here is that an audit strategy is not static. Also, if the control assessment in the chapter 12 shows a red flag, the entire evidence mix in chapter 13 must be changed to be much more detailed and substantive. Also, for the final takeaway, the audit success depends on the dynamic strategy. If in the internal control assessment, or the chapter 12, reveals the weakness, then the audit program in chapter 13 must respond with more intensive and substantive evidence. I think that's all from our group. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.